Hi, I'm Brian Knudtson. I work for HPE as a technical marketing manager, and I focus on SimpliVity specifically. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about SimpliVity and talk about how it can help to simplify your environment even further past just simple hyperconvergence. So we like to talk about how complex things are first before we talk about how we simplify it. So we start off with kind of what we have today, what we call the legacy stack. And this shows off a ton of different things that we have in the rack. It's very complex, a lot of things that need to work together. Over time, what we've seen is the simplification of that stack. And it goes from just trying to pre-package some of it to hyperconvergence, where we kind of cram the storage into the servers directly and create intelligence around that to do it between nodes. Where SimpliVity actually starts to simplify beyond that is by creating more of a data management platform than just a hyperconvergence platform. So we take functionality like backups and WAN replication and items like that that help to simplify things even further, which means less interfaces to learn, less stuff to buy, less sales teams to work with, less contracts to track, less support numbers to have to call. We take it another step further by actually putting everything into the Vsphere Client. We designed it to be for a virtual machine administrator, to make it simple for them to be able to manage everything that they have in one place. So no longer do they have to go to a class to learn how to manage the rest of it. It plugs right into the way that they would want to do it. Things like backing up a virtual machine or cloning a virtual machine using SimpliVity's technology is just a right click away. What we found is that customers really are finding all of this to be simpler. They're able to reduce their time spent keeping the lights on, spend more time doing innovative projects for the business, whether that be implementing that new ERP system or trying to find a better way to serve the data that they need. And we do that by making it very simple, by making it very compact, very easy to scale, and building it into those familiar tools, making it very easy for a generalist to learn. No longer do you need a specialist for storage and a specialist for networking. You can have a much more robust support staff by having everybody able to manage every part of it. We take this another step further when we talk about disaster recovery. And we have a product we call RapidDR. And what that product is designed to do is to automate the failover capabilities of SimpliVity. So we have built-in backup and recovery solutions, which makes DR faster for customers who are simply going to right-click on things and restore virtual machines and do the whole DR runbook manually. RapidDR does is comes in and you can pre-program the recovery of the virtual machines, the order which they come in, changes to IP addresses, changes to networking, and have that all happen with a push-button simplicity. What I like even more is the fact that it happens to be something you can use to test your DR as well, meaning that you can use it very easily and it'll document the whole recovery process for things like tracking, for being able to just see what happened, and for being able to hand it over to auditors to show that, hey, we actually went through the process and everything worked appropriately. The other thing that's really cool is since it's all tested ahead of time and it's all pre-programmed, you don't have to worry about mistakes being made, which means that things are going to come up more efficiently as well as faster. But what I really want to get into here is the REST API side of things. So we have a very robust REST API. Everything that RapidDR does is based on our REST APIs that are available. These REST APIs kind of grow every release. We add a little bit more functionality. There's parts of the GUI we have within the Vsphere client, our functionality there, a lot of it is already being transported over to the REST API. So no longer do you have to worry about having or focus on having a CLI to be able to do things outside the GUI, which honestly there wasn't a lot to begin with. But now you can use the REST API to do actually even more than some of that. So obviously everything's really easy. To clone a virtual machine, I right-click on it, I select clone, I give it a couple of things like a name, and off you go. Very simple to begin with. But what we do with the REST API is we actually have a GUI that you can use to investigate how to write to the REST API, to better understand all of the options that are in there. And this is an example of that, showing where the clone is in that. So again, it's a very, very simple task to go in there and look at that. Clicking on it then gives you all the information you need about how to make the call. So what information do I need? I need a GUID for the virtual machine, so I know which virtual machine I'm going to clone. I need to know some information about the name of the virtual machine, whether I want it to be app consistent or crash consistent. Those types of things can be fed in directly through this interface, and then click the try it out button, and it will actually execute it there. In the end, it actually gives you a bunch of the code that you need in order to execute this. You can copy and paste this into scripts to be able to get it, and you also have the ability to see exactly what's going to be returned. So that section of the response body is all of the name value pairs that you'll get back after running this. And you'll see that as we move through this interface, we're actually matching up from one step to the next to show you that, here's the URL, here's the path to get to this particular function. Now I can take that, put it into code. This is a particular example of a PowerShell script, and this PowerShell script, is doing this clone operation. You can see it being given the functions, creating the URL that we need to call, and then executing it at the end and capturing that result that we saw in the response body. Again, using that same copy and paste, showing exactly what we need to call in order to make that happen, and then being able to understand exactly what we're going to get back so that we can take the next step and parse that information. So, what can we do with the REST API? These are examples that have been put together by Hersey Cartwright, who used to be one of the SimpliVity SAs. These are all on his website. If you go out to vhersey.com, you'll be able to see and download his example code for these. So this first one is a simple PowerShell script. What it does is it goes through every virtual machine and looks to compare whether it's using the same backup policy that is assigned to the data store that virtual machine is on. So in SimpliVity, you can assign a backup policy that defines when it should be backed up, where it should be backed up to, how long to retain the backup. Those policies can be assigned to individual data stores to provide a default policy for any new virtual machines. Virtual machines can be changed individually as well, though. So what the script does is highlight, and you can see one in red there that has drifted, essentially, from what the default policy was based on the data store that it's on. This next one, again, is another PowerShell script. And what this one is doing is going through and looking to make sure that there's valid backups. This is essentially a backup report you could run on a daily basis and be able to see whether or not those backups are truly protecting that virtual machine or not. Again, something you can easily schedule, and no longer do you have to go in every morning and look at all the backups. You could send an email that could very easily show you number of backups that succeeded overnight and number of backups that failed overnight, and know exactly what needs to be fixed, or if anything needs to be fixed, which is usually the case, that nothing needs to be fixed. This next one, again, PowerShell. What this one is looking at is the size or the availability of storage in different clusters. So it's going to these different clusters and also looking at the individual virtual machines, or sorry, the individual SimpliVity nodes to determine how much space is available on each. So again, another report, maybe you run once a month, once a quarter, just to see where you are. Maybe you're dumping it into a database or some sort of spreadsheet where you could then be able to run a trend analysis against or something like that. So very expandable from that perspective. This final example here is giving us kind of an example of how we might use this in a operational perspective. So creating backups, moving backups from one cluster to another, for example. We can a lot of the tasks are going to a lot of the tasks we're going to run through the REST API. The response is going to be a task that we can then go back and query and find out what its status is. So by going back over and over again, we can kind of give a status update, and when it's finally done, be able to say, okay, we're done, move on to the next thing, or is there something else you want to do? So quick examples of what we can do to SimpliVity to not only take the simplification that Hyperconvergence promises, but use the feature set, the main feature set SimpliVity provides, plus some additional products like RapidDR, and then going full board and using the REST API to further simplify things to be a perfect fit for your environment. So that's what I've got, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.